A little over a year ago, I decided it was time to upgrade my camera. After consulting with friends and doing extensive research, I finally came across the Panasonic GH5. And after weighing my options and pulling the trigger, it's been a year of shooting skits, web series, real estate videos, interviews, shot commercials, short films. I've shot things for friends and family, and of course, YouTube. And over the course of this year, I've really gotten to know this camera. And these are the things that I love the most about shooting with the GH5. 1. Slow-mo. This camera can shoot at 180 frames per second at 1920 by 1080 resolution. That's 13% normal speed. And the image quality still holds up, whether I'm shooting at 120 frames per second for B-roll or action sports shots, or 96 frames per second, or if I'm shooting at 4K and want the option of shooting at 60 frames per second, that's 40% the normal speed at 4K. For a camera at this cost, it's amazing to be able to shoot at these high frame rates at such a high resolution. Number 2 is resolution and color. Not only do you have the option to shoot in 4K at 60 frames per second with this camera, but you can shoot in 4K with a 10-bit color depth. Essentially, a 10-bit depth is taking in a tremendous amount more color information per pixel with every shot. And what it ultimately comes down to is picture quality. And what I can say is that the GH5 was a major upgrade for me in picture quality. I truly love the way the image looks, and I've had a number of clients, colleagues, and friends tell me the same. Number 3 is stabilization. This is something that I have found to be so helpful with the GH5. To show you guys, I went to the Botanic Garden and took footage of me just walking, trying to hold the camera as still as possible. This is what it looks like without stabilization. Now with the dual stabilization of the GH5 and the Lumix lens, it's like I'm holding a gimbal. The smooth shots that I've been able to get handheld with the GH5 have been tremendous for me. And using the IS lock, it's a feature that, in the occasion that I actually do forget my tripod, I can set this feature and it's going to hold the image as still as possible even while I'm shooting handheld, something that has definitely come in handy for me from time to time. Number 4 is focus transition, and this is one of the features that I love the most about the GH5. Gone are the days when you needed a dedicated focus puller to get a pinpoint focus transition. You have the ability to set 3 different focus points with 5 different transition speeds. This feature is great when just shooting B-roll, but it is fantastic for shooting short films with cinema-like quality. Having the ability as a one-person film crew to actually focus in on different actor marks as I'm shooting has been wonderful for me as a filmmaker as I try to get more cinematic shots. Now 5, I'm just going to talk about the overall design. This camera is lightweight, it's got a good feel in the hand. It has an awesome flip screen that works great for vlogging and YouTube. I think the dual memory card slot is amazing because you can film between 2 different memory cards without even missing a second of record time. I really love the focus peaking feature for using manual focus. The zebra patterns are great for dialing in on exposure and really honing in where you want your IRE to be on each shot. And I don't know if I ever really would have gotten into time lapses or stop motion without having such an easy in-camera feature. So overall, I can say there's a lot of features that are truly awesome about this camera. But with all the good, there's always going to be a few negatives as well. The number 1 negative I hear about the GH5 is the autofocus. You can do a quick Google search of the GH5 and it's probably going to be the first thing that comes up. And it's true, the GH5's autofocus is not going to be as good as a Sony camera or the dual pixel autofocus of a Canon. But I can say for me, this hasn't been an issue. I don't use autofocus very much. I wouldn't want to rely on autofocus with a Canon or with a Sony. I want the accuracy of doing manual focus, which is why I really like the focus peaking feature and I really like the focus transition feature. But I have found that with each firmware update, they actually have been making improvements to the GH5's autofocus. But the autofocus for me is not a deal breaker. I don't use it that often. I don't plan on using it that often. I'm going to continue to use manual focus because I want exact focus and I want to make sure I have that kind of control. The next downside is with the depth of field with a micro four thirds crop sensor. Now, shooting on a micro four thirds sensor essentially means that in comparison to the full frame sensors of certain cameras or the APS-C sensors of the Canon cameras, shooting with the same focal length lens, you're going to be getting a much larger shot. Now where this affects me is when I'm shooting in confined spaces and I really want to use one of those longer focal length lenses such as an 80mm to be able to get some of that background compression and that classic blurry bokeh. Sometimes, depending on the size of the place that you're shooting, you just won't have the room for some of those longer focal length lenses. So my overall opinion is, I really love this camera. It's been a great year shooting on it. I feel like I've really been able to get some really nice shots, not just for video, but also for photography. It's been a really enjoyable camera to both shoot film and shoot photos on. And honestly, for the cost, you get a lot of great film-forward features that you don't typically get for a camera body that's under $2,000. So personally, I would highly recommend this camera. I'm not affiliated with Panasonic in any way, and this is just a real-life review of my experience over the last year. So I hope you all got something out of this, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. All right, peace.